Welcome, everybody, to the Seattle Sports Union podcast. My name is Abraham DeWeese. I'm back again with that damn dirty duck Matt Paige and the Savage Nathan Savage. All right, guys, here it is Saturday morning. We're taking a look at the Seahawks draft picks, and there's been some surprises, some shocks, and it's still going on to this hour. All right, let's go ahead and take a reaction to this year draft. We're going to start Seahawks first, then we might get to some sundries a little bit later. Uh, let's go ahead with the Seahawks number one pick, 18th overall, out of North Dakota State, Bisons. Uh, Zach, not Zach, Gray Zabel. I don't know why I've been doing that all week. I've been saying Zach Grable, or
Zach Grable. Okay.
Yeah, it's Gray Zabel. Thank you. Reactions. We needed an offensive lineman. I'm okay with this pick. How about you guys?
We needed like 4, to be honest, if we're really honest. We have a left tackle. That's going well for us. That's about it right now. No, I love the pick. I'm over the moon. I really like Zabel. He is the type of guard that we need for the zone rushing attack and blocking that we want to enact. He blew everyone away at the Senior Bowl. I know that's not necessarily the greatest, but it's honestly true. The kid can grind. I saw him on mock drafts as high as 11. And so at 18, I'm totally comfortable taking him, and I think he immediately makes our offensive line better. We don't have a left guard going into this draft. You could have driven a car through that hole. We now have a player there at least. So at the very least, there's a body there now. But I think we're gonna really learn to love him. I'm very high on this kid.
Nathan, it's from what you and I were discussing this week. It doesn't sound like you hate the player, rather you hate the position he was drafted.
I don't even necessarily hate the position he was drafted. I just think one thing, I feel like Seattle fans have either forgotten or don't remember. Schneider drafts actually a lot of O linemen. He's just never able to make them work. I think the Seahawks are so much more successful bringing in their O linemen that have already been developed by other teams. And when they draft, I just really don't like what happened and what's seemed to universally happen under Schneider when they draft. So yeah, I think they maybe reached a little bit. At least for me, I know you said mocked at 11. I saw him more like 25 to 32. That's not that big of a reach though, like we've talked about. But on kind of the checklist, I would say they went for position of need over best player available. They reached a little bit. They went for a position that they've struggled to develop in the past. They went for a position where it's going to be a brand new coaching staff where we haven't seen how they do. And historically, from what I've looked at with Kubiak, as much as I was excited for Kubiak, I don't know if I'm ready to give him all these top picks when we have a guy like McDonald. I think at the time I was pretty mortified. Once they traded and got the guy I kind of wanted there anyway, I'm feeling a bit better about it. But for me, on day one, I just was very nervous about seeing a position that historically Schneider has been absolutely unable to either evaluate or develop get drafted so early. That's
So
what I was mostly upset about.
so you wanted a game changer on defense. Who did you have in mind?
I really like the guy the Steelers grabbed.
Derek
The
Harmon.
one, yeah, I really wanted a guy on defense when again we saw how game wrecking McDonald's defense can make a guy like Williams. I wanted to just have what the NFC North or the AFC North is kind of put as their blueprint is just wrecking teams on the defensive front. And I think we started that last year, and I wanted to go defensive front and just dominate on that side of the ball and basically forget about any team running on us and letting our really high level corners force the passes towards them and letting our linebackers and now our new safety do what that seems to do best in this McDonald's system where they're allowed to roam all over the field, make big plays, become all pros. I was just hoping that would start on the defensive front. I know we'll probably end up getting that later in the draft. I just thought a couple of those guys hanging out there. Even I also really like the corner for the Broncos. Just a couple of those guys hanging out there, I think, are going to really become perennial Pro Bowlers and also make our defense once again something that um, no team is going to want to play and something they'll have to circle coming into the week as just too many threats to really handle and try to figure out a way to break through.
Matt, any comments on what Nathan has to say? In that it looks like Snyder has a bad track record of drafting linemen high. I guess Nathan, you're talking about James Carpenter. You're talking about guys like Abe Lucas. You're talking about Phil Haynes, Christian,
Buffetti,
yeah,
yeah,
Fetty.
yeah. And
Um,
not just high, just overall, it seemed like he's really, really struggled to get any hits with his lineman draft picks.
well, I do have to draw. I never thought I'd have to do this, but I have to defend Jermaine Ifedi. He didn't miss a start for us. He played for us for like 6 years, and he never missed a start for us. He was a solid starter. He was never impressive. He never became the All-Pro or the Pro Bowler that we'd hoped, obviously. But the kid showed up and he put in the work and he played and he was decent. He got a lot of penalties, obviously, but uh, yeah, some of these players, yes, he's missed on a lot of offensive linemen. The honest truth is there are not enough offensive linemen in the NFL. It's a position of serious need. Every single team needs offensive linemen. Everyone misjudges and drafts offensive linemen that don't work out. There was the guy who was famously drafted by the Titans that only played 4 snaps in the NFL, and they took him in like the first round a couple of years back, I remember. So there are these lapses and misses all the time. You never really know. We don't know about Gray Zabel. We'll find out. But the bottom line is that the players that were available on defense were graded about the same in terms of a starter in the NFL as Zabel at that point. They're really it's a weird draft. There was like the top 8 or so blue chippers, honest first round grade guys, and then everyone from like 8 or 9 overall down to like 100 all have like the tiniest difference in quality in terms of draft grading on the 8 scale, and it's just you at that point go with what you need, because at number 50, or when we traded up to what, like 36 or whatever, we got Emanwari, you might as well just go and get what you need, because we had plenty of picks in the mid round in that top 100 where you could get comparable guys. And so at that point, when they're all comparable, you're going for the players that fit your system and what you want to do. So I think we picked guys that can fit our systems, and I think I'm excited about our new safety as well. But Gray Zabel is going to be an explosive guard for us, one we've really needed for a long time.
I think one thing that we're losing sight of though is uh, the fact that there's been many misses doesn't mean you should stop trying.
Exactly.
I mean, you got to keep you got to keep at it. Otherwise, that hole that you already have in the middle of the offensive line will continue to stay a hole. And we've already seen that they did not make an effort in free agency, that big of an effort. That is, they got
Yeah,
one
they
guy,
missed
but
out on a couple guys that they really
yeah.
wanted, I think.
So they already had their mind set that they were going to address it in the draft. And this guy falls. And I know you don't like FCS guys, but one of the greatest Tennessee Titans of all time, Michael Ruse, came from Eastern. And he's a
Actually,
multi.
They named the field
I like
after him.
FCS guys. I don't have any problem. I just
You
um
called him an FCS guy with
well,
quotes.
I think that's where just at 18 drafting a guard, not a guaranteed home run guard from the SCS, not like a Zach Martin where you know,
He might turn into
most
Zach
people
Martin.
thought Zach, exactly, but a lot of people saw Zach Martin as a can't miss guy. This is a lot more risk here. And if he turns into an Ifedi, he would be considered overdrafted throughout his career. Just because of the way the interior O-line works and the way the position works. Ifedi gets a little bit of a pass because of how sought after those tackle positions are. But
It, it's just it's just weird though because
yeah,
Fetty and Carpenter, we the, like all the pundits had said that was an overdraft. None of the pundits are saying that this is an overdraft. This they're saying this is you know this is about where he should have fallen, and it was anywhere from
Yeah.
15 to 32 is what I saw, like second half, and that's where
yeah. I think
that's
they're saying they're not surprised because Seattle needed it so badly. I just what you said about you got to fill the hole. I would have really liked the hole to be filled in free agency. That seemed to work before,
that's already
and
gone
I
though.
would
I
have.
mean,
We are
No, I
where
we're
we
know, but
are.
yeah,
that's
we're
where
past
I'm
that.
very frustrated given these circumstances. And I think if Schneider gets in trouble for this pick, it's going to be because of his decisions to choose to cheap out in free agency, but then spend a premium in the draft when we do have a guy sitting right next to him that seemed um, I think Mike McDonald, I like him a lot. He doesn't have the best poker face. He seemed like he wasn't too happy about that pick. And the guy who was projected to go there, they ended up trading up and getting anyway. So I'm sure they had a conversation of, hey, I'm gonna accept that you drafted this guy. I need to go get one of my guys early, and I'm glad that Schneider was willing to do that. But for me, I would have just much rather um grabbed who McDonald wanted there. I respect McDonald a lot more um, coming off of what I've seen last season than Schneider's ability to draft O linemen.
Did you not see? Did you not see Brock Heward's face when we drafted Gray? You guys didn't see it. He jumped up. He was
No.
doing a little dance. He was
Okay.
all right. Well, okay. You
I
guys are not. You're not
I don't,
impressed by his enthusiasm. Okay. Uh,
okay, no. Sorry.
For me, I think everyone's enthused. I think everyone's very happy about it. I'm just seeing some of the same exact reasons why we're sitting here with such a terrible O line. I'm seeing history kind of repeat itself. And I guess I'm more of a history guy than getting excited about a guy we've never really seen play
that's not
football.
true
And
because that's not true because I'm the next guy we talk about. I bet you were jumping up and down on your couch, and that is safety out of South Carolina, Nick
And I haven't
Emenwari.
watched a lot of South Carolina games in
I
years.
have, and this is the game changer that you've been wanting, Nathan.
yes, except for his size profile at safety makes me a little bit nervous.
Okay, so for those who don't know, he's 6'3", 6'2", 6'3", somewhere in there, 220. Uh, I don't think it's a great comparison, but a lot of people are comparing him to Cam Chancellor because apparently he has
No.
been mentored by Cam Chancellor.
Yeah.
I think his game is a little more fluid in the backfield, and I think I don't think, especially in today's football, you can't do like the head hunting anymore. Um, so he's not really that, but he is a linebacker's size, Nathan. That's correct.
And what we saw with Cam is that's why Cam kind of fell, but Cam was able to defend. I mean, we saw his plays in the Super Bowl, and I mean, plays all around the field, long defensive touchdowns off interceptions. Cam,
I don't
no
think Vernon
problem. Cam
Davis
was
remembers
able
him.
to, yeah, Cam was able to do all that he wanted to do on the field in terms of hitting players and causing disruptions and just being our hammer because he was able to cover the pass over the middle.
Hmm.
That's the only thing I'm a little bit worried about here is just, um, again, another pick where it's exciting. It's boom, boom, like big boom, kind of like big statement being made, but the potential is sitting right there for him to bust. If he's not able to cover at an NFL level, he just won't really be able to see the field. Maybe he could bulk up to play a different position, whatever. But for
What we
for me, this is another example of I like it. I like Schneider going all in on this draft, but the kind of writing is there if some of these guys um, don't end up succeeding to the level that we want them to. And I think this one I'm a lot more excited about just because it's on McDonald's side of the ball, and we've seen him really, really be able to develop players and turn players that we weren't too sure about into all pros and just really, really high level defenders in the league and very sought after defenders in the league. So for me, I'm more comfortable about this just because of McDonald, but I would say there's a little more risk with this pick too.
We should be, because the better comparison is the Ravens safety Hamilton, that Eminwari has a better flavor profile for that.
Yeah.
Mike or Matt, what do you think?
I love the pick. I like trading up to him. I mean, one of the great things about
Tell us about that. What did they give up for him?
they gave up crap, what did they give up? They
Well, they
gave up
gave up
our number well, they gave up our DK and the pick, a
Gino.
regular pick in third, not our Gino pick. I looked
Oh,
that
not
up.
our Gino. Okay.
Yeah, we picked Milrow with the Gino pick, but we'll get back to that. I like one of the best things about this going to this draft was that we had 10, I think it was 10 picks on the beginning. We're doing some trading as we talk right now, and gaining more picks, but it gave us currency. If there's a player up there that we needed to move up and get, that we really wanted, that we were targeting, we had that flexibility this draft. We haven't had that in a few drafts where we've been able to go, okay, we want to go get this dude, we can go get him. We've kind of been stuck going, okay, shit, he didn't fall to us. So I was happy to see they had a guy they wanted, and they went and they got him, and I will always champion that. I love that. And I like the kid. I agree with you. I'm not quite seeing the Cam Chancellor, comps, but I do feel good about him. Adding him to McDonald's defense, it will add a good layer of depth we need at the safety position, and I'm excited to see him play for us. I think it's a great pick. A plus. I think the first two picks right there were A plus in my book. Both fill a need, and both are great players.
To what you were saying, Nathan. I mean, I see what you want. Is you want a lurker kind of in the middle. They call it a robber or a lurker that's in the middle. Uh, this guy can actually cover man to man, and at the SEC level, he can cover man to man. So I don't think he's going to be exactly what you're looking for. I think what they might do is they might bring him down and cover tight ends or the slot receiver.
I think
Um,
for me, it's just what you guys have been saying about Cam and Hamilton, the way they play. I think that's probably the way McDonald's going to have them play. Give them a lot of freedom to go everywhere on the field. The only thing for me is just these players have existed before, these athletic freaks. What stopped them when they're this size profile has just been the acceleration and the quick change of pace in the middle of the field, where guys like McVay or Shanahan or other, they just completely shred them in these intermediate passes, and they're just not able to see the field. I'm not saying he's going to be like that. I actually think McDonald will do. For me, this is a full 100% McDonald pick. I don't think we saw Schneider and Carroll doing this too often. I think this is McDonald saying, I want this guy no matter what. You didn't get him at 18. I want him right now. And I like that. I like that McDonald chose to do that. And I respect, after the first season, what McDonald was able to do, to trust that he's going to give a guy like this the space and the protection with other players helping him out to go be the guy that he is and the guy that they drafted. So I'm not saying you're going to be nervous about every pick you draft. Just the only that initial like shout and yell of excitement, as I've been looking at him more, just that's going to be the danger with him, I think, always. Just like we saw sometimes with Bobby later in his year. And of course, Bobby played a different position, but where we were kind of wringing our hands and pulling our hair out was in these short intermediate passes. We play in a division where the coaching staffs, and even with the Cardinals, with the way they use Kyler Murray, that's a major, major focal point of your defense that has to be solid. And I think that's going to be, as we watch him and watch him develop, that's going to be what's going to need to develop for him to be the Kyle Hamilton, to be the Cam Chancellor that we want him to be.
the next you're talking about worries. I think the next draft pick is the one that we're worried about, and that's out of the University of Miami, Elijah Arroyo, the tight end, two-time ACL injuries, same leg, by the way, but highly effective receiving tight end. Kind of plays in the slot, but there was talk of using him more like a Jimmy Graham, so not really a tight end,
Mm-hmm.
but like an actual receiver.
Yeah.
Uh, so, well, yeah, Matt, what's your thoughts on Arroyo?
Well, maybe the second time they did the ACL or whatever, they replaced it with a bionic one. Hopefully his medicals came back positive for us to draft him. But no, he's a pass catcher. I don't think they're gonna use him on blocking duties. They're gonna try, obviously, to improve it. But he's a pass catcher. We needed another pass catcher. You don't walk away from DK and Tyler Lockett and not have deficits at the position. Sure, we added Cup and we added Valdez Scantling, but we don't have. The honest truth is Noah Fant is not cutting it. We haven't had a legit threat at tight end to catch in. Stop me here. How many years? Decades?
Well, we had 5 games where Will Dissly was not injured, and that was a good
Dissly was a
thing.
blocking tight end that turned out able to catch. Before him, we had Luke Wilson. Before him,
and there you go. That's kind of what the comp is. Probably it's probably Luke Wilson.
Yeah, well, I think he'll be better than Luke Wilson. Let me put it that way. But yeah, we need a big guy in the middle who can catch, and that's a tight end. He's 6'5", 250. He can get some contested catches in the middle for us. We need another big body receiver, and if you can't get a DK comp, maybe you get a tight end, who can move, and he can move. The knee is a concern, but obviously they did their due diligence with the meds, so we'll see. I like the pick. He was, I believe, the third tight end off the board. There was the top 2 in the first round that went before pick. I think pick 16 was the second one, and then there was a drop down to him and the LSU tight end, and then after that is just, well, there's the Oregon tight end with another little lower round, and then there's nobody. So we got one of the top 4 tight ends in the draft, which is great. We really need one for our offense that we're going to run.
Nathan, an often injured tight end, and what seems to be a cluttered up slot position. Was this the right pick?
I mean, I think this is another one that the fans wanted, and maybe they would say was kind of a hole for the team. There was a lot of talk about wanting a tight end, even in the first round, of hoping a guy would fall a little bit later. And I think for me, again, this is just showing that Schneider wants to go all in terms of just really these big boom bust picks. I think before the injury, he was projected to maybe go top 15. Just a crazy freak athlete. Again, seeming to really match who he's drafting in this draft. He seems to have been really going after the athletes in this draft. Production, let's throw that out the window a little bit with some of these guys and just say, hey, and with our offensive coach, with our defensive coach, I trust that they're going to develop. I would say it's pretty much a requirement to have this type of tight end in the Kubiak offense. I think the hope for them, I think for a guy that also was getting a little bit injured in college, was Kittle. The hope for him is to play, I think, the Kittle role, and I think he has the athleticism to eventually become a really good blocker if they need him to down the road. But I think for me, he's another guy where the athleticism just kind of spoke to Schneider, and Schneider went after him and wanted to get Kubiak someone to really fit his offense, especially as they transition out of the Grubb offense. It's very obvious they're trying to hit specific pieces of need to fill what Kubiak wants. Again, those injuries are pretty crazy that he suffered and can really sap a lot of the athleticism. Even if it looks great on a medical report, it's tough to tell how he's going to move laterally, how he's going to run out of routes, break out of routes, how quick he is off the ball. But yeah, I think I'm really seeing a pattern here. And once again, just definitely this is a Schneider pick, as we've been seeing kind of the last couple of years.
Yeah, I was not certain that we needed this. I feel like what we needed was an outside receiver. Um, Second round, I think a edge rusher would have been nice. A tight end. I'm going to go with what you guys say. I mean, it seems like this offense needs tight ends,
Yeah.
but I don't know if this was. I don't know if this was it. And the injuries really have me worried. But the thing that has me more worried, guys, is on the radio. They talked about converting him to an X receiver,
Yeah. Okay.
and that's that Jimmy Graham thing I'm talking about. Like
Yeah.
he kind of plays all over. I don't know. Is this guy talented enough to do that? I don't know. Or are you forcing him to do something he doesn't want to do? You know.
I think he doesn't want to block. I think he's a tight end who doesn't want to block.
Well,
So you line him up as a wideout. He's big. He moves well in space.
we don't know. We don't know if he doesn't want to block. I just know from watching Miami last year, he didn't do it. You
Yeah.
know that
Also,
that
Miami was designed to pretty much not worry about blocking or running the ball. They
Yeah.
just wanted to beat you by throwing
yeah
over and over and spreading
yeah.
you out and everything. So yeah.
Yeah, but
So
imagine if Cam Ward had more blocking around him, then it would have been amazing.
I'm just
But
saying.
anyway,
I'm just saying. I don't know if it's a desire thing. I don't want to put that label because we know for Jimmy Graham, he just plain didn't want to do it. You know
no.
that was evident. But anyway, let's go ahead and move on to the next one. The eyebrow raiser of all eyebrow raisings. Um, Third round pick, Jalen Milroe to the Seahawks, quarterback, University of Alabama. Roll Tide, I guess. Um, I was confused to the point of laughing. I was actually laughing
Yeah.
at this pick. I'm like
So was I.
thinking to myself, like, you have four quarterbacks on the roster. By the way, Matt, you want to give the update on quarterback?
That Shadur Sanders has finally fallen,
Not that,
and
not that one, not that one. No
The
oh,
one cares about that.
Sam Howell.
oh,
Yeah.
Sam Howell is now a Minnesota Viking.
That
Because Drew Lock was signed in the offseason anyway. So yeah, that was writing on the wall.
Yeah. So Milroe was I assume, guys, that he's gonna be a uh red shirt of sort. They don't have
Yeah.
red shirts in the NFL, but he'll be sitting there. Uh he has all the physical talent. He is the most physically talented quarterback in this year's draft.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is he can't throw and he can't read defenses. But who needs that though, right? So I think the idea here is that he sits, learns behind Kubiak, and this screams to me like a Kubiak thing. I want clay and I want to mold it.
Mm-hmm.
My hope had been that this would be like a slash scenario where we could bring him in Wildcat and do fancy trick plays. But it looks like this is going to be a redshirt year. Nathan, what do you think about this pick?
I've actually agree with you 100%. I've been very frustrated. I understand physically talented, meaning from the right arm to the left and down.
Yeah.
But quarterback, the most important physical talent is your arm. His arm has been a major problem. His teammates were wanting to quit the team and go into NIL if he stayed there. He really, really struggled with an embarrassment of riches on O line and pass catchers. Again, though, people are forgetting who Kubiak just coached last year. I think you mentioned it, and that's what I thought immediately is Taysom Hill. And
Mhm.
Taysom Hill absolutely wrecked last year before his injury. He was just so almost perfectly designed for this Kubiak offense, and he was putting the team on his back. And for me, no one's talking, or a lot of people are saying developing or some of that. I just see right away Taysom Hill. Taysom Hill struggled also all the time um, throwing the ball at BYU, but just ran all over the field, was just an athletic freak. And he was drafted originally to maybe develop, and then they realized, why are we developing when teams are going to have to stack the box against him? We have all these gadget plays, wildcat plays, and when teams are worried about him running the ball, he throws a few through few touchdowns every year as well off of that, and no one is really worried about his arm ability because he's such a threat physically, in terms of his athleticism with running the ball or setting up these gadget plays. I actually think they drafted Milroe to be a Taysom Hill for Kubiak, and I
Yeah.
think
Sean
Kubiak did
Payton's
one of the
Joker.
best jobs. Yeah, one of the best jobs I've seen with Taysom Hill last year. And I would say, due to injuries, of course, but at certain points last year, the best player on the field on offense for the Saints was Taysom Hill.
Yeah.
And he really carried them. Him and Kamara were actually a big threat on a team that was just wrecked by injuries.
Mm-hmm.
Matt, what were you thinking when you saw this pick?
Well, I was laughing, and as you may recall, I want to share what made me giggle the most. Lance Zierlein, the NFL analyst for the NFL.com, wrote this write up about him on the NFL draft page, and I just want to read you the first two sentences, or no, it's the first sentence. Sorry, just the first sentence. Milroe is an explosive athlete who's very capable outside the pocket, but he lacks accuracy, touch, and decision-making when he's inside the pocket. Now, what are three things you need while you're inside the pocket as a quarterback in the NFL? I love that. I thought that was hilarious. But I agree. I think, you treat him like the Sean Payton Joker, like Taysom Hill. There's a lot of interesting things he could do. There's a lot of interesting ways you could use him. If defenses have to plan for him, that's another big, okay, crap, we got that dude we got to plan for and think about. If he gets the ball in his hands in open space, the dude can fly. He was the fastest player on Alabama last year. The fastest on Alabama, who is full of blue chippers and fast runners and good safeties and corners and really fast players, wide receivers. He was the fastest player. He's an amazing athlete, and I think he opens up to a lot of very interesting, just things, combinations and plays and trick things. And oh no, wait, he's actually going to stand and throw. Things that the defense has to plan. The other team's defense has to plan for. It's a third round pick. I don't mind rolling the dice on him at all. I remember seeing sometimes he was potentially mocked to us in like the second or even the first, and I was like, no. But the third round in a draft that we have that looks like this, and that we have all these extra picks later on, I love the pick. I think it's very interesting. It opens the door to a lot of interesting things you can do.
So,
Yeah,
so let's take a look at that.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I was going to say, so let's take a look at that. Can you teach? What were the three things again, Matt? Touch,
accuracy, touch, and decision making.
Can you teach that?
You can teach touch and decision making probably, but I don't know about. Well, you can probably.
I don't know. From what I've seen, the accuracy one is the one that, yeah. I think decision making, yeah.
Really,
yeah.
I think what it was is their blocking would break down a lot, and he would kind of panic. I think if you give him good protection, which, once again, we're the Seahawks and we don't have an offensive line, but if you give him good protection and you help build up his confidence a little bit, I think he could potentially be a decent quarterback. But I do like the idea of him being a Taysom Hill kind of dynamic to the offense of, like, if he's on the field, where is he going to line up and what are we going to use him for? And now the defense is like, oh crap, now he's a tight end. Oh wait, now he's lined up as a running back. Oh wait, no, he's out on the wide receiver slot. We got to cover this dude. We got to keep an eye on him,
I do hope that's what they do, but if he does end up just redshirting and they try to convert him into a regular quarterback, so for the background on Milroe, I mean, because we all, whether we liked it or not, we all ended up watching an Alabama game or two this year because SEC, it just means more, I guess. Not in championships in the last 2 years, but anyway, the Milroe was constantly touted as coming from a military family. So he's very disciplined. And unlike Shadur Sanders, the interviews apparently with Milroe were they went extremely well.
Yeah.
He won the, what's the award? What's the academic Heisman called? He won an award for
the William Campbell Trophy.
Yes, that's it. The Campbell Trophy, which is it's called the academic Heisman.
Yeah.
Because
top scholar athlete.
Yep. He did really well in school. He showed all sorts of leadership and character. Does that play into why he was drafted so high? And can that convert into leadership on the field? I'm thinking the Louisville quarterback that went to Baltimore.
I don't want to.
Lamar?
I was gonna say don't mention those
Lamar?
guys.
I'm going to mention Lamar, yes. And I don't know why I referred to him as that Louisville quarterback, but he has a name, yes, Lamar.
Lamar
Because
Jackson.
Lamar had to learn to QB
He
because he
did.
was a runner who threw, and he learned how to.
Yeah.
Yes, he did. He did,
That's
Nathan.
where I was going to mention it. That's what I was going to mention earlier. I think one thing I've been very frustrated by is these like Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Michael Vick comparisons because those guys, yes, they were known for their running, but they were also unreal passers. They just were more flashy when they're running. But you can look at their passing stats in college. They could throw the football on another level. And even to these days, that hasn't gone away. Their arm strength, their accuracy, it's just on another level. And I think that's what I've been most frustrated by the fans after this pick and this conversation about redshirting him is I think most teams in the NFL would draft Taysom Hill right now in the third round.
Yeah,
Maybe his injury changes things, but as he was successful last year, they would draft him in the third round because that gadget style player that you can bring in and is pretty solid at touchdowns and can be a special teams ace for you and is a big leader. Like Taysom Hill is a major leader for the team. The players all love him. He's a great clubhouse guy, like or locker room guy. I think those can all be true of Milrow, and I'd be happy with this third round pick. For me, just with because I know you mentioned some of the O-line issues in the bowl games, but during a lot of games they had the Alabama offensive line talent and he had infinite time to they ran the clock on some of these plays where he whiffed wide open receivers. They had some of the best wide receivers in college, an amazing O-line, one of the best ones in my opinion still, and he just could not get the ball out in an offense that had just produced Michael Penix, and he just would throw the ball so inconsistently. I just don't think the arm talent will ever be there to compete with some of these guys. But
that's not arm
yeah,
talent though, because he has actual arm talent.
He does.
That's
for me,
knowing the
I don't.
game.
I'm not talking about Jamarcus Russell arm talent. I mean, like
He has
being able
NFL
to
arm
hit guys,
strength.
hit no strength. I'm not talking about strength at all. I'm saying ability to hit guys in a window, out of the pocket.
Okay, you're
From
talking
what
Accuracy.
I
about
watched,
you.
he's just not able to hit anyone in that accuracy, and I
Yeah.
would call that arm
Okay,
talent
so
myself, and more the more
though
important
was
arm talent in my opinion.
Nathan. My
Yeah,
question though is, can you teach that?
no,
Okay, that's
Yes.
fair. I mean, I think I'm in Matt's camp. I think you can teach that. The thing is,
With that level of an athlete, you can. With that
yeah,
quality amount of clay, like you're saying, use him as clay to mold and shape to play he wants. Kubiak wants to mold him. With that quality level of clay, yes, you can teach it.
I think
but
that's the what separates an NFL quarterback versus a college quarterback or otherwise. And I think that's the biggest factor that defines players like Aaron Rodgers or Brady or Drew Brees is their accuracy. And yes, right up there too is their brain, what you saw with Peyton Manning and otherwise. But I think the one glaring factor that you have to be an NFL quarterback is that accuracy. And I think that's the hardest one to grade in the draft, but one where if you don't have it, I don't see you as an NFL quarterback.
yeah, but I think there's a huge. It sounds like we're not going to agree, but I mean, I think there's a huge
Yeah.
difference where I think you can teach accuracy. I think you can teach mechanics, which is a big part of that. Um, I don't. I don't think you can teach arm strength, speed, size, and all those things that are the God givens, right? The
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah,
so
you
I
can't
think
teach
there,
someone to be taller. That's
yeah,
unfortunate.
exactly. So I'm willing to throw like Matt said, I'm willing to throw the dice on this if you just want to sit him down, try to put him through whatever special stuff you can, and um, you know uh, take advantage of occasionally of trick plays, gadget plays uh, to get him up to speed, so to speak.
Yeah, we'll have to see how they put him to use. That will weigh heavily into whether it was a good pick or not. But ultimately, I think it's a good pick because it opens the doors to a lot of fascinating possibilities, and could ultimately be amazing. We'll see. You know,
Uh,
that's the fun part about it. We'll have to see.
All right. So during our show, we had a draft pick just come in. Matt, do you still have it up?
Yeah, we're actually coming up on another one, but we have Riley Mills, defensive tackle out of Notre Dame.
Riley Mills, and I apologize for the people watching this. This happened during our show, so we're getting the instinctive reaction, but we don't know that much about him because I know for me, I hate Notre Dame football so much that I only watch Notre Dame football to watch them lose. Like I
Mhm.
root my one of my favorite teams every week is the team that plays Notre Dame. So, do we have any thoughts on Riley Mills?
What
I don't
little?
know too much. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. Go. You can go
Yeah.
ahead.
Oh,
That's fine.
okay. I don't know too much about him but from what it seems like, he's not exactly filling a position of need. It's more of just a guy that was on their board that they really like. It seems like he won't be able to play nose tackle, which is the position of need, and he will have to play more kind of where Murphy is, more kind of where Williams is, more where some of our edge talent is, and I think we'll see. Again, I trust McDonald though, and they saw something here and saw some talent, and again, it's such early speculation. Maybe they can mold him into some type of nose tackle for him, but so far, at least out of the draft profile or out of how he's played in the past, he doesn't seem very competent or someone who would naturally play the nose tackle position.
Okay, so he's a three to five technique, which would basically be Leonard Williams or you said also Byron Murphy.
Yeah,
So
that's
this
what it
is
Yeah,
seems like. Yeah.
so on the surface, this is a rotational guy. What do you think,
he's a
Matt?
rotational guy. Yeah. The reason why we took him. You mentioned nose tackle. I think the guy they were targeting went 2 picks earlier. Cam Jackson out of Florida. Um, he's a nose tackle, if I recall correctly. I think I think we had him for a visit. But anyway, yeah, this guy he suffered a big knee injury in the college playoff, and so that's probably why he dropped so far. He was a solid edge rusher, really. You know, kind of an edge rusher. Um, from what little I'm able to know immediately, but I really honestly don't know too much about the guy. Honestly, yeah, he's just another dude we're adding to the rotation, and that they've obviously liked his tape. Hopefully, the medical came back clear. Again, it sounds like we're rolling the dice on some guys with injuries this draft, but um, you know, we'll see.
So you said we got another pick coming up here pretty soon. Let's take a look at uh, some non Seahawks who were drafted. And Matt, chime in when you see that
Yeah, I will.
next pick. We'll do the reaction then. Um, Obviously, it seems like it's required on the internet to talk about Shadur Sanders. So we'll do our customary little blurb here. So he just got drafted in the fifth round,
Fifth round to the
Cleveland
Cleveland
Browns.
Browns. The sixth pick of the fifth round, 144.
Okay, so I'd like to ask you guys, what are the Cleveland Browns doing, or do the Browns even know what they're doing? Because they just drafted Dylan Gabriel.
Yeah, they took Dylan Gabriel in the third round, I think. Yeah, it was the third round. It was
Do
yesterday.
they know they can only play one quarterback at a time?
Well, if you look at their roster right now, I have it here on my screen. They have Joe Flacco, they have Kenny Pickett, they have Dylan Gabriel, they have Shadur Sanders, and then they have Deshaun Watson, who's out for the season and probably will be cut. As we were discussing earlier before the show, he probably will be cut, but he's still on the roster
So
and
what's
he's
your
still getting
thoughts?
paid.
What's your thoughts on Sanders getting landing in Cleveland?
I think it's more what you were saying about the Cleveland doesn't know what they're doing. Um, Cleveland is
What would you do if you were Cleveland and you had all these quarterbacks? What's your
I I honestly I don't know. Cleveland is where quarterbacks go to die. It really is. They're such a dysfunctional franchise. They have been for decades, it seems like, and I
is
like
this
Gabriel. As a Duck, I love Gabriel, but he is too short. He's a lefty. It's a hard sell in the NFL. I didn't think he'd really succeed too well there. Um, Kenny Pickett, has had a chance, and I don't know if he's necessarily going to succeed in the NFL there either. Joe Flacco, what's left in the tank? I don't know. He was really good when he played for them 2 years ago, but then last year he was not that great. What flashes we saw him, I think it was in Indy.
So
Um,
are they just throwing quarterbacks at the
they're just
wall?
throwing it at the wall and seeing what sticks. I think they're hoping that Shadur impresses in camp and maybe they keep him. But you wasted a third round pick on Dylan Gabriel, so I have to think you're keeping him too. And then Kenny Pickett was their big offseason signing, so maybe Joe Flacco gets the odd man out, and then they cut Deshaun. I honestly, a team that has two quarterbacks has no quarterbacks. So I think I think you're right. I think they're just throwing it against the wall and hoping that something sticks.
Nathan, your thoughts on Shadur to the Browns?
I think this just shows some of the danger and dysfunction can happen when you're not all on the same page in the front office. I think it's another example of why Cleveland just keeps struggling to figure things out. I think nothing that big of a problem with the Gabriel pick there in the third round. But again, so I'm sure someone in the front office really likes Sanders there. And as the draft is going on and as he's falling further and further, his voice gets louder and louder. And then finally they say, okay, yeah, fifth round, we're also going to get Sanders. But it's just such a bad way, in my opinion, to run your team. Here you draft the guy of the future in what you think is Gabriel, and you spend a pretty high draft pick to get him. What do you immediately do? You put one of the biggest known locker room cancers that's going to get the most attention
Yeah,
immediately behind him. So even if you think Sanders is really good, which I actually think talent-wise he's the most talented quarterback in the draft, and if you think Gabriel has what's successful, has the kind of tools to be successful even with his some of his lacking abilities physically because of his intangibles and how well he played in the kind of a pro system in Oregon, you immediately throw that out the window by having him forced to be looking over the shoulder the whole
yeah,
time. And I think these are examples of why teams like the Panthers, teams like Cleveland, we can the Jets, the list can go on and on why it almost doesn't matter who they draft. They put them in positions of failure continuously, and those positions of failure lead them to be the Geno Smiths of the world, the Sam Darnolds of the world, where here we are sitting with, $30 million quarterbacks that the teams they got drafted on, they looked like, just a guy off the street when they were playing there. And I'm very, whatever your opinion of Sanders, whatever your opinion of Gabriel, this is worst case scenario for the both
yeah.
of them. This is exactly what you should not do to your young quarterback if you want him to succeed in the NFL.
Yeah, and then you got to wonder, like, for Flacco, is this what you want to just, they're just waiting to put you out to pasture to put in someone else? For Pickett, yeah, he got his knees cut out from underneath
Mhm.
him because they drafted two quarterbacks. Why did he even waste time, signing with Cleveland now?
Well, he was upset that they signed Flacco. He came to Cleveland to start, as far as he was concerned, and as far as he
well,
was told.
yeah, but I mean, at this point, there is with the draft capital, there is no room for Pickett.
No,
Like you
No,
can't
no,
keep.
I think Pickett, I, yeah, I
I
just
think
think
you
this is
cut.
complete incompetence.
Well, I think the honest truth is I don't think there's anything left in the tank for Flacco. He's a fan favorite in Cleveland because of how he was a rock star when he was there. They had to let him go last season because
Yeah,
he was going to upstage their quarterback by being there, and so they let him go and he went to Indy. But when he was in Indy, he just looked really bad. He didn't have the magic anymore, and
Yeah, he's probably at the end of his run. But I mean,
he
like, why
is.
would you bring him? Why would you bring him back to then just draft these quarterbacks?
So, well, that's the thing. It's Cleveland. It's where quarterbacks go to die. Like I said, it's
yeah,
it's not competent management. It's a poorly run franchise, and
yeah.
they don't know what they're doing. They have no idea. They have no plan. They have no
Yeah.
idea. And
And if you're a team that's valuing a rookie quarterback, the last thing you want to do is this former rookie with a chip on his shoulder that kind of flamed out, had some attitude problems, be your projected starter because that
yeah,
guy's not going to help those rookies at all. I think
no,
Flacco actually has a lot more value here that
true.
they've already now invested in Pickett. He's supposedly their starter. Like it, none of it really makes sense. And to me, it speaks to probably a front office that has, three or four guys or however many making the decisions. Maybe the owner stepped in and said, we have to get Sanders, whatever the situation was. It's just for all these quarterbacks, I would say it's probably worst case scenario um, for
Hmm.
all four of these guys that we've talked about.
Yeah, and a good point is it might be worth it to keep, even if Flacco's done. It might be worth to keep him there to mentor a as in singular
Yeah.
rookie quarterback to
Yeah.
keep him there to train up the kid. But if you have two, yeah, it's going to be that camp is going to get all the media, and then
Yeah.
the
Hard
team
Knocks
is going
better
to
be in Cleveland
yeah.
this year. I hope
Yeah.
Hard Knocks goes to Cleveland.
Well, this
Yeah.
is utterly baffling though, because by grabbing Sanders and having all these other quarterbacks, you have committed to at some point having to play Sanders.
Yeah,
And this almost smells to me of like, ownership interference.
yeah.
Uh, I think
Yeah.
Nathan, you were saying like this sounds like people are not on the same page.
And
Is
because
somebody
if
going to
you
get
were, yeah,
fired because of the Gabriel pick? Is the
Yeah,
yeah.
owner going
because
to step in and fire that guy from yesterday?
And
could
and
be
again, in any sensible world, if Shadur Sanders was your guy, you draft him there in the third round.
Yeah.
You took Gabriel because you thought that Gabriel was better than Sanders, or
right.
whatever the situation was. Why then? Like the quarterbacks immediately when you draft Gabriel, in my opinion, the quarterbacks are off the board. Even if you had some good interviews, even if you liked the talent, you had your moment to make your decision. You made your decision, and then you go draft for the other positions of need.
Hmm.
Now, and I think a lot of fans even were talking about that when there was the potential of Sanders falling and even falling further was all these teams that were quarterback needy had a time to draft Sanders multiple times and they chose someone else and they moved on. They're now looking for other things. They got their quarterback. And I think, yeah, it's just the classic example. I think, Jerry Jones tried to do it in Dallas when they tried to get Menzel, and then Cleveland, I think, did it themselves when the owner stepped in and grabbed Menzel, or even I think the owner was involved in this Deshaun Watson thing. And I would just assume probably the owner we won't
I don't mean
know, but
this.
I'd assume the owner stepped in and said he wants
I
Sanders.
agree. And I don't
What?
mean to make this like a bash Cleveland segment, but like I'm looking at the draft picks, it started off so well. They got Mason Graham, they got your favorite linebacker, Matt, Carson Schwetzinger out of UCLA.
Yeah, I love
And
him.
then they proceed to they overdraft a running back, Quinshon Judkins out of Ohio State. He was not supposed to go that high. They take two quarterbacks, two running backs. Like, what are they doing?
There is one other wrinkle here we haven't. That was their last draft pick of the draft, by the way. It was their last pick. They don't have any more picks for the rest of today. Um, but there is one more wrinkle,
Hmm.
and that wrinkle is that they traded with us. They traded with the Seahawks and gave up their 7th round pick to get up to this spot to take him.
They
So
probably could have stayed where they were.
they could have stayed where they were also, and my question is for you is that pick was right in front of the Eagles. Were they thinking the Eagles were going to jump up and like
There must have been some
take
rumblings,
him?
I'd assume. I'd
Would
assume
the
there was
Eagles
probably, yeah.
maybe make him a backup to Hurts? I mean,
I think
I
that would
don't.
have been for me when this is going on. I thought a lot of these teams, these top teams, it actually makes a lot of sense to get Sanders. I think Sanders is a guy that you could hope that a year of on the bench will humble him. You could hope that some of his interviewing issues in terms of reading a defense would get fixed sitting for a year. And at the end of the day, in terms of accuracy and I think just the raw arm talent and pocket presence and all that, I would say he might be the best quarterback in the entire draft. Which again, he grew up playing all the time with Cam Ward, who went one overall, and pretty consistently scouts had him rated over Ward basically until now. And I think that's just from the talent alone. And you would like that as your backup quarterback if you're a team like the Eagles, I think, where for at least the current time you're going to be set up for a while, and maybe a stupid team like Cleveland comes in and that gives you a free second round, third round pick in the future if they want to trade for him while he's on your bench, whatever you want to do. But I actually think for me, he made the most sense going either undrafted or going to a team that already had the position figured out and just wanted to develop him and maybe trade him or otherwise.
I did see him. There was, I forget who it was, but someone was idly speculating maybe he goes to the Rams and sits behind Stafford because they have Stafford for maybe like 2 more years, and McVay could sort him out, and the LA limelight would satisfy his dad and all that, and McVay might be able to make it work. But yeah, he landed in one of the worst possible spots he could,
So
and
I
yeah,
Yeah, and to me,
I
that's just
I
the
get to
end.
this.
I think that's the end of Shadur Sanders when that happens, basically, when he goes
I,
to
yeah, he's
Cleveland.
not going to have an NFL career basically.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I get I. There are three approaches to look at Shadur Sanders. Four approaches. One is from the media who watches a lot of football, but they don't really understand football.
Yeah.
Two is the fans who listen with their heart. They don't actually look at anything. Um, three are the PFFs of the world, the rate, all the ratings, from uh, analytics, and then four are GMs and coaches. GMs and coaches are the only ones that actually draft anybody. um, and wherever Sugar lands, in the popularity of the media or the fans, is really fundamentally irrelevant because he didn't do what was necessary to impress the people that actually do the draft. The idea that, yes, Nathan, he probably was way, 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 way higher rated than Cam Ward ever was when they were 16. But what has happened in the last, 6, 7 years of their life? Cam started off as 0-star recruit, went to Incarnate Word,
Hmm.
went to Wazoo, got that, went to
Worked his
Miami,
way
got
up,
even better,
learned.
and worked his way up the ladder and showed that he has, immense ceiling. Shadur had his daddy give him a job and got on TV a lot and went in went into interviews and did not do well in interviews, uh, and didn't go to the combine, didn't go to the Senior Bowl, didn't do what was necessary to show that he was any better as a person than he was when he was 16. I mean, that's what you're looking at when you're GM and coach. You're looking at ceiling, potential. Where can I go from here? Where can he go from here? Uh, Shadur's tapped out and hasn't shown the maturity, and that's why he's going to a team that acts immature as well.
Yeah.
Oh, do we have a draft pick that just went in?
Yes, the Seahawks just took with the let's see what pick. It is the 166th overall pick, Torrey Horton, out of wide receiver out of Colorado State, a
Oh, nice.
sleeper guy that I really like, and I love that they took him. He he had here's a common theme for you. He had a knee injury that cut his senior year short. But I think he might develop into he's going to take some work, but I think he might be surprising people here and there.
What? Two things for me. One, he's a receiver. We need a receiver. Two, he was a guy. Do you remember the 5 or 6 overtimes Colorado versus Colorado State?
Yes.
He was torching Colorado.
Yeah.
And by the way, that was the biggest victory that Shadur ever had, was against a lower level team
Yeah.
in many overtimes. But anyway, that you said ACL?
It was just a knee surgery, knee injury. I
Okay.
don't know the thing. He was the captain of the team. He won all kinds of awards, first team, All American, All Mountain West. Solid dude. I don't know too much about him, but I know that I liked his tape, and I'm intrigued by this. I really like the pick. We needed another wide receiver. I'm hoping that now we go back to the offensive line well at this point for the next couple draft picks. At least one more. But yeah,
Hey, Matt.
I like the pick.
Matt, can you pull up measurables while you do? Nathan, what's your initial reaction?
He's got a 4.41 40. Vertical jump 37.5. He's 6'2" and 196 pounds.
Okay. Initial reactions, Nathan?
I mean, it's tough to have an initial reaction about a player without kind of looking at. I mean, I just don't know anything about him, but I don't know, as I'm hearing some of more of these injury situations, and there's this conversation that guys like Cup or Darnold were brought in on contracts to maybe more appease the minimum cap requirements than immediate success this year. I do wonder if some of these decisions and some of these projects are setting up for not next year, but the year after next year for this
So
team. Um,
band-aids.
yeah, no, no. Oh, yeah, I guess just in the NFL, it's like talked about not that often actually, because it's always a salary cap that's talked about, but there's also a salary floor. You
Yeah.
can get rid of guys and rebuild, but you have to pay guys. There's no middle ground like almost every other big league where we get upset about it, but it's to try to keep it as competitive as possible. And I am wondering, as we're over and over hearing some of these situations where guys are coming off injury, might need a year, might need some time over the course of the year to kind of build up their strength and get ready. And it's very common for rookies anyway, but as I'm hearing more and more of these type of picks, I am starting to wonder if they're looking more at not next year, but the year after next
At
year.
2026,
Yeah, yeah.
I think that's very possible. Um, they seem to be methodical in their decisions regarding rebuilding. They're being very deliberate in their moves of who they're picking. They're not just going out and grabbing anyone and plugging them in the hole. They're being very selective. And that's probably why we didn't succeed in free agency. Like, they probably had like two guys that they really wanted and they just missed out because they weren't, you know, Schneider is famous for being, like, as you said, cheap on guards and so forth. But the NFL, like I said, there's a shortage. There aren't enough offensive linemen out there, and you got to pay for the value. And the league has recognized, because we're going back more towards running backs and running. The league has started to really value guards again, and they're getting paid. And so, I think we had like two guys that we really wanted. We're being very selective in particular, and those guys got offered, 20 million more to go somewhere else, and Schneider was like, "Oh, whoa, no way."
So you guys are saying you're thinking they just got out of salary cap hell. They're hell bent on not getting back into that
Mhm.
mode. That there needs to be flexibility, um, either for this year or more likely next year. Then.
It's not like we're tanking. They're not going all out and going for Arch Manning or something like that. I think maybe Cleveland's doing that. I don't know. Playing fifth dimensional chess. I don't know. But they're McDonald is being very selective. He's getting his guys, and he wants to build a sustainable, franchise and model it kind of after the Baltimore model. I mean, think about it. Baltimore has been great for so long, and it doesn't matter like what the player they have. They kind of adjust to fit, where their strengths are that year to year. Guys come and go, but they just kind of maximize what they have. So
Right.
it comes to drafting. They have a guy at every position that they like, and they can just go, "Oh wait, Kyle Hamilton fell into our laps. We don't really need a safety, but hey, we love him. We'll take him."
Right.
And so I think that's the model he's trying to get to, but it takes some very careful long-term planning to start. And I think that's a good point. We might be aiming for 2026.
All right. Final thoughts, guys.
Uh,
You happy with the Seahawks selections?
so far, I'd give it a 4.5 out of 5 stars. We'll see. I'm very happy so far. There are obviously questions regarding the injuries. There's questions about how they're going to use Milrow. But I think they've made me more excited to see the Seahawks this next year and see what becomes of it out of camp. And um, yeah, I think it's a positive note. They haven't flunked. They definitely have not flunked this draft. They've done well.
What do you think, Nathan?
It's just very, very interesting. Honestly, for me, I agree. I'm very excited to see what direction it goes because it's just different than what we were seeing under Pete Carroll. I think it's just a very different draft. It definitely has. We'll figure out more in the future. I assume it's Schneider, but maybe someone else has really had a big say in the draft, and this is their blueprint. But it seems like they've had a plan. We're continuously talking about these guys coming off injuries. I even do feel myself that we see this all the time. A guy like Puka Nakua falls because he's an injury problem, comes to the NFL, gets NFL training, gets NFL staff, gets NFL mindset of how do we keep him safe and on the field in order to, be the player that we think he can be. And then they end up being on the field over and over. So
Yeah.
I I could definitely see this working out where they found a kind of a gap where there's a lot of these injury guys who fell down and they saw the medical and saw, hey, we think we can train them or help develop them in a way that at the NFL level they're going to be able to see the field a lot. So that part I don't know enough or don't have enough information to say exactly what type of injuries they have, what the medical report looks like or some of that, but it is very interesting to see this kind of blueprint that's been created here and this pattern that's been created, and it'll be interesting to see next year and in the future if that's successful in the NFL to do it that way.
Awesome. Yeah, for me, the first and second round picks, the first two picks, I mean, Omen Worry, we don't have to learn how to pronounce that name right. I'm going to
Yeah,
have to learn. And Gray
Zach
Zabel,
Grable.
yeah, I'm going to have to learn his name too. But I think those are A plus pluses for me. And everything else is a toss up. Bunch of injury guys and a quarterback that I wasn't certain we needed. Um, but if the quarterback that I wasn't certain that we needed ends up being Taysom Hill, and if the injuries, at least a couple, uh, hit, especially that well, the defensive lineman, if he hits, I'd be really really happy with this draft. But for me, it's kind of uneven. It's um, 50-50 at best. So I'm not gonna. If I did star ratings, Matt, I think mine's more like a 3.5, full star down from what you're saying. But yeah, great stuff. I guess we'll find out uh, later this camp. And I want to say appreciate you guys joining on a non-football season podcast on behalf of that damn dirty duck Matt Page and the Savage Nathan Savage and myself Abraham DeWeese. Thank you for joining us on the Seattle Sports Union podcast. Check us out on YouTube. Check us out on wherever you get podcasts. And we'll see you guys next time.
Go
go
Hawks.
Hawks. Yeah.
All right. Oops. Somebody put something